What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. You guys see the title. Let's get right into it. So, Manny Pacquiao, Chris Algieri, they're in Macau, China. They're doing the promo tour before they get into their training camps to promote their fight. And I told you from the jump, this is not a fight that I'm thrilled to see. Yes, Pacquiao has struggled at times with the pure boxer, guys with good lateral movement, just guys with counter-punching ability. And some people are like, oh, Chris Algieri has a height advantage. He's a good boxer. He's slick. Why do you not want to see this, Ego? And that's simply because, one, there are plenty of fights in Chris Algieri's normal division. Not a fucking catchweight, not 47 or nothing else, at his division. There are great fights and perhaps better fights. The problem with boxing nowadays is everyone, oh, boxing is a business. And you even get the fans talking like promoters, like, oh, how much money did the fight make? And just different stuff, talking about people's purses more than fight predictions and who's going to win and why, and just objective outlooks on the actual fight. And the problem, again, with that is they're in it to make a quick buck. So if they could capitalize on a fighter's success, like Chris Algieri, oh, he beat Ruslan Provodnikov, it was a rocky underdog story. Let's use that. He's a clean-cut dude. He's, you know what I mean, a white American, clean cut from New York versus Pacquiao in Asia. Yeah. You know what I mean? And they could put that on flyers and try to sell it. And that's what happens in boxing. You get that often. Now, the thing is, the division in which he did have that rocky underdog story was 140, not 144, not 147. And again, I think they're throwing this dude at Pacquiao. And one of two things are going to happen. Either a new star will be born, because if Algieri can outbox Pacquiao, then obviously his stocks are going to skyrocket. Or Pacquiao is going to look like true form because he's in there with a guy who's smaller than him. Even though he's taller than him, he's still smaller. And by smaller, I mean not necessarily stature, but not a big puncher. He's not a guy that's just going to devastate him. So there's plenty of fights that I haven't been too keen on in 2014. This is definitely one of them. I think Danny Garcia, nobody really tops that Rod Salka bullshit. That was the worst. This is pretty bad, but it's obviously not Danny Garcia versus Rod Salka, because there is a stylistic challenge, I guess you could say. Pacquiao has struggled with pure boxers. In my opinion, if Pacquiao doesn't look like true Pacquiao, like vintage Pacquiao, if you will, then he could never beat Mayweather, even in the prime when they were first talking about it. That's what I feel. If Pacquiao at this stage of his career can't convincingly beat Chris Algieri, then he could have never beat Mayweather. And that's just what it is. Some people are, oh, fuck you. You know what I mean? Some of you guys are going to get mad, but I don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? I'm not here to appease you. I'm here to be honest with myself and you guys and let you know what I think. Back to Chris Algieri versus Pacquiao, that particular fight. Again, I feel 140 has some good matches that we could see. One, Broner. I want to see how Broner does against somebody who has the activity level, the conditioning, and the height of a guy like Chris Algieri. In the slick boxing, Broner tends to be a lot more flat-footed. Plus, a lot of questions remain unanswered after Broner got kind of mopped up against Maidana, and also he had a very tough and controversial fight with Paulie Malignaggi. So at 140, that's a good fight. Then you have Danny Garcia, who he had a tough schedule, had a tough time and struggle with Mauricio Herrera. A lot of people, including myself, and I interviewed Herrera, he feels he beat Danny Garcia, and that style has probably given Danny Garcia the most problems. So that's another good fight. How would Danny Garcia fare against someone who's taller? Similar to Mauricio Herrera in the terms of activity level, but he's a little bit taller and a little bit rangier, maybe even a bit slicker. So I would want to see Danny Garcia, because if a fighter struggles with, like, if they can blow through anyone who fights in style A, but they struggle with style B, then yeah, of course I want to see that person fight someone with that style B. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see Adrian Broner against a John Molina, somebody who's rugged, kind of cagey, and has power, because he struggled with that in the Maidana fight. Then you have Victor Postal and Lamont Peterson. That's another good fight. Lamont Peterson, Chris Algieri. So really, ultimately, I think Pacquiao, it doesn't do anything for his legacy to beat Chris Algieri. It obviously will do great things for Chris Algieri's career if he can dethrone Pacquiao. I just think ultimately a lot of people are going to try to sell you this fight. Bob Arum, they're talking about in Macau. Some of the fans, the diehard Pacquiao people, they're gonna try to pump this fight up and make it look like it's the best fight. But ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, Chris Algieri at a world-class level has not been tested. And his biggest win is against Ruslan Provodnikov, and that was very, very hard fought. But he doesn't have any other significant wins. I've had people go as far as, oh, he gave Maidana problems in sparring. Fuck that. Sparring is sparring. A fight is fight. I heard Deontay Wilder had problems with Malik Scott in sparring, but in the first round he got knocked out in a real fight. So I don't want to hear that. I don't care about fucking sparring. That's good if people had good sparring session, but that's not always the tale of the tape. That's not always going to be a telltale indication as far as how a fight would go. Plus, people spar different years, different times. Sometimes they have to mimic other styles that aren't their styles. So there's a lot of variables when it comes to sparring. Like if I was sparring Floyd Mayweather or something, let's say I was actually his size or whatnot, and he was about to fight Maidana in a rematch, then I'm being paid and brought on to kind of implement a game plan like Maidana. You know what I'm saying? Someone who's unorthodox, has that chopping overhand right. And that might not be my dedicated style when I fight as a pro, but in sparring, that's what I'm going to try to mimic. That's what I'm going to try to replicate for the sake of sparring. So there's a lot of different variables when you talk about sparring. So I don't care about stuff like that. Other than that, Chris Algieri, he had a win against Emmanuel Taylor. We still don't know how Taylor's going to do against Broner. Maybe if Taylor can beat Broner, then that'll make Chris Algieri look better. But ultimately, to me, it's not that great of a fight because you got a guy who has question marks. He's fought at home a lot. He's from the East Coast, from New York, Strong Island. Shout out to Long Island. And I'm not hating on his career. It's just he hasn't proven anything on an elite level to be at this particular stage. And I don't care what anyone says. It's just a fact. Beating Ruslan is a solid win, but a lot of people, like even when I did my post-fight, I was like, oh, it was a good fight, close fight. I enjoyed myself, but I had thought Ruslan won. And then I watched it and I'm like, okay, I can give it to Chris Algieri because Ruslan started to search and he had his man hurt and he just couldn't pull the trigger and finish him off. But there's some people that still think, Dan Rayfield being one of them, that Ruslan Provodnikov won. So again, your biggest fight wasn't a dominant fight. It wasn't by any stretch. Some people thought Chris Algieri lost because although he was outboxing Ruslan, he was throwing like kind of just pity pat 1-2s and you know what I mean, punches that weren't really hurting Ruslan Provodnikov. So it's arguable. Your biggest win has an asterisk by it in the sense of it's arguable. It's not like a Mayweather versus Canelo, Pacquiao versus Rios, where it's just complete domination. If you scored Pacquiao versus Rios, if you watched the fight and you gave it to Rios, then you need to kill yourself. If you watch Canelo versus Mayweather and you gave it to Canelo, you need to kill yourself. You need to CJ Ross yourself and quit, leave the sport because you don't know what the fuck you're talking about and you don't know shit about boxing. That's what I'm talking about. Chris Algieri did not have that type of performance at all. You know what I mean? So I'm not buying into the hype. Like I said, Pacquiao has struggled with that style a bit, but I handedly expect him to beat Chris Algieri. You know what I mean? That's just my personal opinion. I think a lot of people bring up his size, but ultimately the size is not really doing you much good if the person that you're fighting is stronger. Like, you know what I mean? So we'll see. Like I said, I'm not counting Chris Algieri all the way out, but again, if Manny Pacquiao can't beat Chris Algieri at this stage of his career after beating Timothy Bradley in his last fight, then I think he never could have beat Mayweather. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like the video. As always, hate, comment, or subscribe. Till next video, it's Ego signing off.